All right.
Takes forever.
Okay, folks, welcome. Thanks for being a part of the APD CTC Land of Acronyms. That's the Architecture, Plan, and Design College Tuition Committee. Here are for a fee proposal tonight, or an increase proposal. So kind of the way this process works, I know I sent everybody a document, and everybody should have that kind of information of what the process is, but this group will meet tonight, hear the proposal, be able to ask questions. We should have an hour for everything. And then, kind of seeing how everybody's feeling at the end of the night, we've scheduled a second meeting. That's next Tuesday at 6 p.m., which will be here, where we'll do our second round of discussion and hopefully vote. That's completely up to you. If you feel comfortable voting at the end of tonight, that's your decision. The members of the College Tuition Committee. Everybody on this side of the room is simply an observer. They don't vote. They can talk, but they don't make a motion on when to vote. That's all what you all are comfortable with. And then next week, kind of same similar process. Candidly, my goal is I would like to have a vote on this by spring break, so the end of next week. However, engineering did take 3 meetings for their fee, and if that is what we decide, that's just as fine. Jonathan and I'll hit our heads against the wall a couple times and come up with some administrative plans. It's kind of been the game plan thus far. So anyway, I'm going to turn over to Dean DeNoble and take it away, sir.
Well, let me introduce folks to y'all to start with. I think we got it.
We do a roll call real quick. I apologize.
I'm Olivia. I'll be taking minutes doing rollover meetings, so I'll send them out to you after. And if you could just say here, what your name? Haley Feinberg.
Oh, well then I don't have to do that part.
Yeah. Brandon Hyde. And if I mispronounce, let me know.
Heidi.
Heidi. Okay. Yep. Angel Alanes.
Yep.
Christina Sanchez. Here. James Jenkins. Casa Asia Jackson. Casacia. Okay. Jaziel Duarte Terrazas.
Hasiel.
Sorry. Mitchell Culbertson. And Allison Trent. And then Nate.
Yep.
There you are.
I'm not talking until I'm told to talk.
I skipped roll call on our last meeting too, so it's my fault.
Well, I won't belabor the point because I think this is students getting to talk to students, and that's a lot more important than listening to a long in the tooth dean. But let me just say that I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your diligence in looking at whether it's really important or not for us to encumber ourselves with more fees and that sort of thing. And hopefully you've had an opportunity to see what we sent out, which was basically the kind of full compilation of the process of doing the fees, looking at the fees, looking at what they would mean for us, as well as my continuing arguments that ultimately I would like to change the way we do tuition in our college, given that our students already pay more to get their education, a lot more than any other degree here. And I mean any other degree here. They pay graduate tuition for 30 hours. Some of them pay an out-of-state graduate tuition. They pay to go study in Italy. Their fee's not as high as other colleges, even with this raise. But I think that we have done a very good job, at least from my point of view, and I get a lot of feedback of showing what they get for their fees. And in the same way that I approach a design problem, we don't raise fees just to meet a problem. I often say designers are not, we're not problem solvers, we're problem setters. And the difference is a problem solver is like a plumber, right? They get paid a finite amount of money for a finite job. You got a leaky pipe, they come in, they fix it, and you're done. When we finish with that pipe, you're going to have something beautiful. It does something way beyond just fix that leak. And that's synergy. And I like to think that that's what we've done with our fees. Our fees have not just gone to, bring in new technologies and bring in technology for our students to help them ultimately land the positions that they want because of their familiarity with the software and the hardware that's necessary to advance design in our world. The fees, when we raised them from $19 per credit hour, $35 per credit hour, and then $40, and by the way, they had voted to go to $55 in successive years, were a large part of the argument we made for the state to ultimately agree to back our building project. I would walk into a legislator's office and say, my students are invested in this project. I need you to invest in this project. These same fees were a large part of how we went from raising $1 million a year in my college to almost $5 million a year. Because I would walk into an alum's office and say, do you realize that my students are paying more in fees now than you paid in tuition? I need you to step up to the plate. And that's how we've used the fees to do more than just simply put the technologies in front of the students. And if you need any more tangible example of that, we documented, not counting the value of the spaces that were created in this building, just literally what went into digital and shop technologies, that sort of thing, $4.8 million that are wrapped up in that project. And our fee collection rate and what we use our fee and how we are covering personnel that are running that would have taken us 100 years. Because there's no way that we would have been able to somehow save, $100,000 a year, ultimately to get to $4.8 million of technology. Frankly, we wouldn't have kept up with inflation on that. So that's where we used the students' investment, frankly, to gain a lot more. And I think that's one thing we're really proud of. So that's my summation. And I feel like we went through an expedited but open process of the fee question. The Dean's Advisory Council ultimately settled on the $15 per credit hour, and I would let Haley maybe summarize that if y'all have questions about that. But again, I do appreciate the students doing it. I will say again, I see this as not an end game. I don't want to be back here talking about fees again. I want to right size our tuition and continue to raise student support to discount that tuition from my alumni and friends and from our industries, so that I'm not kind of now having to explain to some incoming student, here's your tuition and here's this fee and that fee may go up and all that. I kind of want to get it all as one deal. And unfortunately, and Cindy knows, we hadn't reached the budget model that we need to yet. Once we reach that budget model, I believe I'll be able to ultimately reach, kind of come to a conclusion with the students about where we need to be on that. So that's that. And any questions for me before whatever the next part of the process is? What is the next part?
Well, so I know that you have the questions we had sent you, right? So,
yeah, and so we provided you answers to those, right?
Did you send those?
I did not send them to you. I sent them to
cool.
the CTC
Excellent.
committee.
Good deal. Good, great.
I have a copy for you if you
That would be awesome if you don't want to just look at it. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's totally fine. Thanks for sending those out.
Sure.
And so
Nate, did you get that as well? Okay, cool.
So
let's make sure.
I'll just tell students if you have questions that you want me to jump in on, let me know. But otherwise, it's y'all's platform.
So got some initial discussion.
Jackie, you can make copy of those for.
Yeah.
I can do it right now. Okay.
So I sent this.
They're not 14 copies.
So since he's getting Sharon can send it electronically.
That'd be great.
If you're good with that.
Yeah, there's a group in email. I gotta check what it's called.
Okay. Hey, Trent.
Would Sharon have access to that?
Trent.
Hey, Trent.
I think so.
They set up,
It's the TFFC at KSU email, that one?
Yes, that one. Yep.
Say it again.
TFSC at KSU. If you type it in, it pops up.
Okay.
Just please trust me on that one. It's some big funky long thing after there, but it works.
Okay.
So we just TF.
It's TFSC.
I'm just gonna forward the one I sent to the other students. If I don't. I'm not with my laptop, so.
Thanks, Sharon.
So go on, we'll get this done.
So, I mean, basically just wants to like, go through the question.
Yeah, and so I guess part of the thing is kind of wondering if there's any discussion on here. And then also, really the discussion's up to kind of floor for what your thoughts are. What have you heard from other students? Things like that.
Oh, it's good.
So I guess if we want to jump into some of the specific questions.
Did you get it?
Got it, okay.
So you on that group then? Is that what you got?
All right.
Get the document.
No document?
I don't have a document.
I don't have a document either.
Well, at least you have Sharon's email.
Yeah.
Sometimes
I know, and I said yes to the attachment.
I know sometimes it does that.
I'll try it again. Include.
Oh.
Great.
I can share. With you guys.
Oh, wow. Maybe I should have forwarded all that.
It didn't work again, so maybe.
I don't know.
So you want me to find it?
It's when I forward it says.
So Trent could also make more.
Is it on
And it
there?
says include
That'll work.
attachments, and I put include.
Thank you. Student in economy, paper economy, of course. Don't remove one, just want to have 5 points.
Send me the
Oh,
bill.
That's a good idea. I don't know if it's something that, where it's not.
How about
gonna
now?
Accept the.
Yeah.
Did you get that on time? Okay, great.
You rock.
Okay, mine was great.
All right.
We have an electronic file,
Hey, try and take a paper copy.
which is really pretty.
Thank you, Trent. You rock too. Yes. Nope, I got electronic version. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Crispy fun Swiss French I made that
I
up.
won't go there.
Okay. What's that? You're not on the thing. All right. Okay. So I guess, if I may guide the conversation just a little bit, and real quickly, I want to do a quick introduction just of who's here on behalf of the Tuition Fee Strategies Committee. 2 folks at the end of the corner, or end of the table there, James and Stephen. James is on the committee as the grad student rep, but James is also the state relations director. So I think a lot of the reason why you look at the cost of attendance increasing is due to action from the state. I guess lack of, well, it is action, but it's some lack of funds to have, less positive, there you go, positive action from the state. So James kind of can, it's a good resource for that. And then Stephen's here. Stephen's the student support director this year on Living Eyes Cabinet, which is a position that's dedicated to looking at how we support students, mainly with some on-campus things like our food pantry, but also with needs-based scholarships, and then what we can do for low-income students. And so I think Stephen provides a lot of good input, a lot of good resources. It can be a good, I guess, question. Provides good questions for the committee to consider as well. So that's kind of what I'd probably like to start as question number 6 on the general questions, which is describe area college identifies need. What resources are available to support students once the need is identified? So, looking at how scholarships have increased the past couple of years, and what that kind of looks like moving forward, I guess would be my question to get started, which I hope can kind of turn into a conversation about how this fee could unfortunately, any increase in cost of attendance, be it tuition or a college fee, is going to disproportionately affect our low-income students. Students are more financially vulnerable. So I guess from a college perspective, with some philanthropic activity on scholarships, I guess, but you speak to that a little bit.
Well, I can fill in, and then maybe the students can tell you their experiences. But obviously, we have a scholarship committee. Sharon, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would say that we've doubled the number of scholarships in the past 4 years that we've given out internally.
I would think so.
And I think we're in our 5th year now of having a scholarship reception, which has just continued to generate more and more. As I told the students the other day, in the Dean's Student Advisory Committee, we have an anonymous sign. We announced the gift. It came in as an $8 million gift. That is now at $11.5 million. We haven't quite realized it yet. Just leave it at that. There's someone who's not doing real well, but that, as you can imagine, $11 million gift will generate somewhere around $550,000 a year, of which I think just over $400,000 of that will go to absolute full ride scholarships in our college, which is really exciting. And those scholarships are not just, by the way, it's about need and capacity. So it's not fully merit-based, but it's actually about trying to help us recruit folks in here who have a significant need. Every student that goes to Italy, we have now in our Italy program, we now have $1,000 scholarship goes to every Italy that signs up for every student signs up for our Italy program. Yes, sir.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Students can either choose an internship or Italy,
or both now,
or both.
Because we have Italy in the fall as well, and we also have some programs that have summer study abroad opportunities. These are very expensive propositions, as they were when I was in school. So slightly different cost when I was in school. Of course, you had to take a steamer trip over. It is required that you do either internship or study abroad, and now a lot of students are choosing to do both, and so we're trying to underwrite that proposition. So I feel like we've increased a lot. One of the this is not a scholarship per se, but I think it gives you an idea where I want to be with recruiting. I had an alum firm in Kansas City agree last week to underwrite $25 Visa gift cards to any senior or junior student who comes over and applies to our program and does a tour that is in a Kansas City, Kansas high school, 97% non-Caucasian. And so if a student applies to our program and comes and tours and goes through our, the thing that landed so many of these folks, they leave with a $25 gift card to help pay for the gas, tolls, lunch, that sort of thing.
That's awesome.
And we're going to do the same thing in Garden City, and we're going to do the same thing in Wichita School District, because I want to reflect the society we serve, and we're not there yet. I think we're doing pretty well. Now, part of that is that we have to continue to get our need-based scholarships. And, frankly, I'll just summarize this. We've raised $34 million in the last 7 years. 11 of that is towards the building. 23 of that is towards program and student support. The 7 years before that, we raised $7 million. So I think that we're going at an attitude that we need to discount what the students are paying through scholarships. Hope that answers the question. And see what happens when you ask me a question, you get a really long answer.
Yeah, that's great. So you've spoken to how you identify need, you use FAFSA, you use people in your office. So when you're allocating scholarships like these full rides, different things like this, how do you determine who gets a scholarship beyond university-wide commitments such as a Putnam? What priorities do you have for allocating your scholarship budget?
Well, all of you do a scholarship application. First of all, if you don't do a scholarship application, you're not going to get a scholarship. And you would be amazed at how many people don't do a scholarship application. And that, by the way, is not just here. And the same thing happened at my previous institution. And we have a committee that's comprised of folks from the foundation, folks from our faculty and staff that get together and look at the application, look at need, look at performance, look at performance trajectory, like, are they on an upward trajectory? And that's how we do that. The problem is that we don't, we simply don't have enough to go around. And that's what we're working on now. The new, I don't know if you know the new Mary Veneer Challenge. I think we'll sign our 7th of those already in our little college. That is, basically a scholarship of $25,000. The Veneer Fund puts another $25,000 matched and endows that scholarship. So we've got 7 in these, 4 weeks that's been out there. So that's been a really great incentive.
One more question. Do you have any specific scholarship in that scholarship committee? Does that committee, or potentially if a student comes into the office midway during the year, is struggling, cannot pay their tuition bill, do you have any scholarship dollars that you push towards needs-specific students?
I believe generally we've tied into the university system for that and tried to go with that.
But you do have scholarships that you push towards that.
With help, yes.
Help, yes.
Yes.
So any other kind of comments on or thoughts on or discussion on kind of what the impact of low-income students would be? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll keep it in the realm of scholarships. That seems to kind of be the trend right now. I'm curious and a little, I guess, intrigued about the $8 million deferred scholarship that you mentioned, and it's a little vague in terms of how it'll be realized. Is there anything in terms of maybe an outline or dates that you could share to see how that might?
Well, I'm no doctor, but it's a planned gift. It's a trust, and so there was a couple that left $8 million, and the gentleman has passed away, and we, that's been announced, the $8 million. It has, in the 2 years since we announced it, it has grown to $11.5 million. And, I hope that she lives a long, long life, but she's well into her 90s. So, no, it probably, y'all see how I can't promise you that.
No.
And it's not an $8 million scholarship, by the way.
Yeah, the terminology was a little vague with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's clear.
Crystal clear.
I had a hard time wondering how to say that.
Right. So I guess maybe I'll just go on to my next one. the fee, I feel like in the coming years or months, even as the fee is implemented, if so, low-income students most likely will be reaching out to the dean's office or to whoever, probably more frequently than ever. And let's see, how do you? You'll have to give me a second to think about how to phrase that one. Immediate-based scholarships, I guess, is that a thing that I know you had brought up the issue of?
So just in long term, can you describe what type of scholarship you're thinking of?
More so, if a student were to come to the dean's office saying, as of now, I'm struggling, right? Like at this moment.
So for instance, maybe like I believe a lot of you have to purchase a computer sometime.
Right.
So if a student were to come to your office and say, I can't pay for my computer.
Right.
Are you asking, is there that type of scholarship?
Is there that type of scholarship
or is there a pool of money that you use to help students?
Yeah, maybe on reserve or something that would be utilized for that very specific need of maybe a more immediate concern. Because I'm sure, the increase will really put maybe more stress on students in those situations.
We have used basically what I'd say is decommissioned equipment for students who have needed that in the past. It's not probably at the level that we would need to keep in our labs, or a faculty member might need to run what they're running, but certainly that has been redeployed in the past for students who need, and frankly also for some of our international students who just weren't able to bring them. So yes, if you think we're cold-hearted orbs that, a student comes in and we say, I'm sorry, there's no help for you, I really don't know of any instance where we've ever been that way. We're very supportive of our students.
One thing I might add to Dean DeNoble's answer is there's also you may have heard of the K-State Proud campaign.
Right.
And so they work with the Office of Student Financial Aid. And so specifically, if a student comes to them, they're able to refer them on to the committee that evaluates the student's financial need and is able to help them out with anything, whether it be tuition. They've helped fix people's cars in the past because they needed that for transportation, things like that. So for students that are in dire financial need, the university does have a number of programs for that.
Right.
So.
I'm just going to throw this out right now. It took me 9 years to get a 4-year degree. Yeah.
Right.
Because I cut myself off from a single mother when I was at the end of my first semester because I did so poorly, and I didn't want to be an impact to her. And so I had to sit out of school constantly to make enough money to finish my degree. So it matters to me when students can't afford it. So I hope you don't think I'm some.
No, and I'm sorry if it came off across like that. I'm just, it's a real issue that we're going to have to.
It is, and that my idea is to be proactive enough that we get past that. That's why I'm shifting to focusing on student aid, and I'll tell you right now that I'm going to be brutally honest. It's not to the advantage of the deans to go out and raise money for scholarships right now, because they never see the money. They see it in the quality of the students, but they never see the money. I don't care if I raised $9 million in scholarships this year, literally. And Cindy knows my budget wouldn't have changed. Okay, but I can raise $9 million in faculty support, and I've got lots of money to enhance your education. You see the difference? In a model redone in the future, and I raise $9 million for you guys, I better have some more spending money in my college. to enhance your education. You see what I mean?
And if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'll be glad to draw it up for you. But it's real clear. I never see the scholarship money. I see the quality of the students. I see students that otherwise might not have been able to come, and that's important to me, don't get me wrong. But when I spend many of my weekends and most of my weeknights and everything out raising money, if I had my druthers, because I know I would be able to make a bigger impact, have better speakers, have more faculty, that sort of thing, I would raise the money towards program enhancement. You see? Because I see that money. My students see that money also in terms of what they get. Does that make sense? That's the cold side of it. In a different model, if money that's coming out of tuition that goes to scholarships on our campus, which it does, if that were in the colleges and I got to replace that with money I raised, 80% of the money I raise comes from outside the state of Kansas, by the way. If I was able to replace that and then take that money and put it towards enhancing the educational model for my students, man, I'll go out of town every weekend to raise money.
I think to kind of be fair to our college, we do have, for visiting juniors and seniors and everyone who comes through our college, we have a really great advisor and orienter for all these kids who are going through, who's has it really down well of explaining to these kids that this is not a cheap program and really laying it out. In second year, you're going to need to buy a computer. In third year, you're going to take a big field trip, and this is what it's going to be. In fourth year, you're going to need to study abroad, or you're going to need an intern. And she does a really great job of laying it out for the students before they even enter into the college of, this isn't a cheap program. You are going to have these costs, but here's the counseling service. Here's people that you can talk to. Here's resources available from the college. Here's everything that we have and that we can offer to help you get through this, so that before they even step foot into our college, they know what they're getting themselves into and they know the resources to help get them through.
I think to further touch on Christina's note there, I have a close friend who received scholarships from the dean's office and from our college to continue his education here. And, you know, he doesn't necessarily have the financial support to continue, you know, as if he didn't have those scholarships. So, you know, I don't apply to those scholarships because I'm able to handle that course load with additional scholarships from K-State. But there is a pretty effective outline of understanding, you know, what the costs are going to be, how that changes when you change into grad years, you know, the opportunities and availability of scholarships that are through the college, through campus, through a variety of other places. You know, there's definitely a lot of resources for need-based students to gain those resources as well.
Some of the money that we raise towards, you know, that I've said program enhancement, so it could be a DLR fund, HNTD, these are funds that come down. They help underwrite our, you know, the field trips. So sometimes, you know, all of it, each year level goes somewhere. You know, that's one of the beauties of this. But we travel more than most, you know, coastal centric schools because we want our students to see those things that others take for granted. The more of those that I bring in, the more we're able to underwrite those, and you know, I think that's been quite successful. And then that is not coming out of y'all's pocket.
Dean Noble, the largest part of the new dollars in this fee that you're requesting, it appears to me to be this department allotment. And yes, a question was asked in there about it, but if I'm understanding it right, it's a department allotment for technology.
Yeah.
That will be allocated between the 3 departments, and each of those departments will request the dean's office or college administration and say, here are the specific things we need in addition for our technology. Is that a correct understanding?
Yeah, well, not quite. Okay. I don't want to get in a situation where we were before. In our old building and our own you know, old situation, departments owned all the spaces and they owned the technology in those spaces. and then it became fiefdoms, and we're not going back to that. So if you notice, what we added in there is that that is allocated for department identified needs, and they have to argue for how that will serve the whole college. So there are technologies that I know we need as a college. There's technology support I know we need as a college. I'm not going to get in a situation where I say, yeah, go out. What happened is, you see this projector here? We had 8 or 9 different brands of projectors that we couldn't service because each of the departments went out and bought their own. But if they identify what they think is a need, it goes to our technology committee, which also has student representatives, and they say, you know what, we think this would be good for the entire thing. Now, there will be some things that might be specific to a major, whether it's, interior architecture, product design, landscape architecture, the green roof thing, and but not $200,000 worth of stuff. So the main thing is just that it is, as a department, if they say, you know what, this one thing would help us to advance this degree program or advance this specialization within the degree, and they make the argument where it serves the whole college, then that would be allocated. That's not just going to be dole out and spend it the way you want, because that got us in trouble last time.
Right, I think he's really touching on what he talked about earlier, synergy, the communal aspects. So as far as each of the 3 major departments we have in our college, what are your needs, and do those needs align with everybody else in the college so that we're unified in the way that we move forward with the use of technology?
If we spend that much time on every question, we're in
I
trouble.
was gonna say, so I guess just kind of going down, that was question 4. Question 5 on that sheet, I was asking about that carry forward balance, just, which was, I think I was just trying to see where we are now, because I guess correct me if I'm wrong, fee dollars had not been spent for how'd you pay for the technology that you have now? That's kind of underlying question, and where does that get?
The technology in the new building, including the however many 70-inch touch screens, all that sort of thing, were wrapped up in the cost of the building. Okay. That didn't come out of this. That's what I'm saying. That's what I leveraged the money for. What we used, our stockpile tech money, which was not all of it, by the way, it was just some portion of it, was for 1,500 new desks and chairs for every one of those, or for 750 new chairs, and a 2-desk combination for every student in the college. And that's what was a lot of money. We weren't originally going to do chairs, and then we thought, we can't let them bring that direct in that they bring in, those chairs that come from Home Depot and all that. And so we ended up getting a really good deal on beautiful chairs. And that was a lot of money.
It was.
Stools.
And we used to buy stools, which are not good for your back.
That's for the hours.
Yeah, especially when you're at your desk for 20 hours.
So just so you know, the chair designs were tested out by a lot of people, including the Dean's Advisory Council. We rolled through it. The desks were designed by a committee that included the students. We had prototypes out for the students. We left things on them for them to write their suggestions on, how they can make it better.
Can you talk to how important the workstation is?
The desk and chair combo?
Yeah.
Well, from my experience, because I've been here since we had the old building and now being here at the new building, my first 2 years here, we worked with what essentially was really, really roughed up old drafting desks and stools, which, you're spending anywhere from 5 to 40 hours at your desk working on a project, which you may not always have the space that you need to work on a model or drawings. When you get into higher levels, you need space for your desktop and for spaces for sketching, for building. The necessary amount of space that you need on a desktop is really important, especially for our major. And, when you're sitting at your desk for so long, having that something that's going to be supporting you, that you're not sitting on a stool for that long, it's pretty helpful. So I think that a lot of people, you know, whether we're critical of our design environment or not now, I mean, it's certainly really impactful that we have the space that we need to work on now as opposed to what we had before.
And part of it isn't just the physical aspect of having the space that you need to work on stuff, to actually build your models and to draft your drawings or whatever you need to do. Like that's a big part, but we spend so much time in studio, like we spend a ridiculous amount of time in studio. I cannot stress that enough. And a lot of what's really necessary about having a desk is kind of the emotional and psychological part of it, which is having your own space of when studio is basically your home, having your own space that you can work at and you know that your stuff is always going to be there for you. And you can even just putting up a couple pictures and making it homey and making it personal to you really helps with the focus and just the ridiculous amount of work and the workload that we have to put into this place of really just helping you move through knowing that you have your own space and you have some place that you can go for yourself.
Another note on that as well is the collaboration point of that too. In our studios, you're highly collaborative in the fact that, you know, every work that we do is constantly bouncing ideas off of each other and working with each other, and having enough space to be able to collaborate on this as well is important.
I think too, like during our freshman year, like a lot of these people in here had desks that were shared by like other students the first year, and that's a big point now that like kind of the drawback to that was you had to always put your stuff away and like get it out. So like now we come back, it's our desk, everything's already there. Like we don't, you know, we don't have to worry about like setting back up, and so we're able to be more fluid with our work in a sense. And I think that is a benefit that the first years now get to with the new desks. They all have their own desk. And so it's a huge help to like just already being prepared when you come into class, not having to like worry about making a mess when you put things away or vice versa.
That was being used by others to recruit against us. They were saying, you know, you can come here, we've got a cold desk, which means it's your desk all, you know, 24 hours a day. And so now everybody has their own desk. I should also tell you, in case you're wondering, desks have always been paid for with the tech fee, as long as you pay the tech fee. So.
That's what I was going to say. One thing, you know, just to kind of clarify, especially if we're looking at about 10 minutes left or so, that you know, y'all are the ones who vote. So this is your decision. The group over here, just want to clarify, is just here kind of to promote that conversation, kind of think of things to address, and then part of our responsibility is to make sure that this process is followed and that everybody here had a chance to ask questions and stuff. And so I just want to make sure that you don't feel like you had to, you know, present to us or anything. It's not like that. So, other kind of comments, other questions? I was gonna say, step to the room. It doesn't help with that. So.
Yeah, I think in the future it'll be easier too. There'll only be 2 of us in this room, but because we're all learning the new process, we're all here tonight, so it kind of looks a little confusing. But in the future, if you guys were to present, there'd only be 2 members.
I thought we were going to have a tug of war before.
I'm not saying. The other thing is, I love this conference room, but I think that, you know, the upstairs space in Blue Mountain rooms look pretty nice. A little more room. We could have stayed up there, but I was like, no, we're coming downstairs. So looking back, maybe that was
space.
Yeah, we'd use the space. We paid for it. So
Let me know if y'all ever want to use that.
I think that as like we've talked about this a lot. I've been on the Dean's Council. Like I think I know honestly a lot about how we use our fees through the conversations we've had over the last couple of years in that committee. It's like the reason I don't think some of us sound defensive of it is because we've learned a lot about how it's used and how well it's used. So
it is to our benefit.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to defend that.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't saying that.
No,
I just want to make sure that we're not making that judgment over here.
Yeah.
Y'all, I mean, y'all have questions.
I was say, yeah, questions come from this side.
Since we're learning how to do all that.
Well, I want to make sure all the questions over here are asked as well.
Right.
Honestly, for me, needs-based scholarships and department a lot more format ones.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually glad you brought the departmental allotment thing up because I thought it was important that we clarify that it wasn't just going to be a dole out. But because we were banking the fee for knowing that we also incurred a lot of moving expenses and that sort of things you can imagine. And as Cindy well knows, we didn't exactly intend to be out at the airport for 2 years, but that was the only space that we could find. So returning from the diaspora was really great, but it was, we moved a lot of equipment out there and a lot of equipment back, and still have an asset out there that we're using. But the bank rolling, we knew we had to do. So we quit. Part of it was we quit putting any money in the tech fee in the departments other than just a small amount, because we knew we were going to a college operated system of spaces, as well as we knew we needed in our budget. We did not have enough for the new furnishings for all the studios. If we had done that, it probably would have been a proprietary produced thing as opposed to one we had designed more for our use, and it frankly wouldn't have been as good, and wouldn't have been as everything we design, like our desks are designed that we can replace them by our own processes in our own shop. So if we need to do 50, we can do 50. Needless to say, we couldn't do 1,500, so we had to farm that out.
All right. Well, so that's what I was going to say. We planned out this to have a second meeting on the 13th next week for more discussion and a vote. I was going to say it's entirely up to you. And if you feel comfortable, more than voting tonight would save you the time next week.
Would y'all be more comfortable voting with me out of the room?
We'll say, yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great. If you don't mind stepping in.
Let's rock and roll. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate your
Thank you.
efforts and leadership.
You bet.
Yeah, we can vote. I don't mind.
I've been enjoying your building, by the way, as we're doing some.
And you can be next to it. Yes, let's do it.
I can do it, yeah. I move we vote.
Okay, so I was going to say, I think we should have a vote on whether or not we vote, but I think everybody said second. So, yeah.
Who seconded? Sorry, probably multiple.
Did you get the name down? Well, let's work on that. I was going to say, is there any kind of further discussion? Other kind of points to make?
I think everything that the college has given us with the new building, with the new studio lab spaces, they're very collaborative, large rooms. You've got landscape studios, you've got EMBD, which is our very first year students. You've got 5th year architecture students. They're all in the same room. It's really encouraging collaboration, and the desk setup is also encouraging a sense of ownership, a sense of stability. They also give us desks that are arranged in more of like a conference table setup, which is open space for people to meet as far as clubs, students in their own classes can go to the center of these rooms and take up space to collaborate for whatever reason. I do think that this the increase is really just to benefit the continued collaboration with technology as the forefront of what we're using in our education, and that goes for everybody in the college, not specifically one degree.
Provides that confidence between us as students and in the future for future students.
And as far as the amount that we're proposing from the college, we a few years ago they voted back to this would be where we were at this year, and to be up to 55 because they're at a $5 per year increase, but they halted it when they moved out to APD West. So they would be adding more fees while students were stopping to commute And so this is where we would be a few years ago if we had stuck with that plan, but since it was for a new proposal, we decided that was probably the best amount. So,
And
that's
it's
for
significantly-
context where we're at.
It's significantly less than engineering and what business?
Most things are.
Significantly.
Something that we've deliberated on a lot in our meeting, kind of towards the proposal, was that like no one wants to pay more money. I mean, I for one like look for the best deal most times, but I think that what I see the dean and what his staff doing is like they're really trying to set up a system that's like supporting what we have and like looking out for the future. And so that's the reason why I'm supportive of it. I think that he's being a wise steward of what he has and like designating what he thinks he'll need in the future. And he made a point, like one time someone else did that for the students that are here now when they were paying a fee. And whereas it might be lower, they're still contributing to some factor of what we have now. So I think that's why I see, like, I think I've heard from many others outside our college that we use our fee well. And I think after hearing what he said that they do, I would agree with that as well. So
I feel like you guys are really lucky to have Union Noble.
Has he been as transparent?
He's been completely transparent the entire process.
Yeah, we've been.
Which is, I feel like, which is one reason why so many of us are in support of this, because he's been totally transparent of where this money is going to, and it's going to things that we all use in the college. Like, you have to use all this throughout the college, and it's something that we all need. And like, I don't know what the fee is for like engineering and business, but I've heard it's mostly just to support
$6 billion.
the staff and supplement the staff. Whereas for us, it really goes to things we are using, things we need, helping with some of the tech support. Like, I know if everyone in the college heard that this was helping to pay for our tech support, which we've given arm and a leg for these people. They've saved us
Don,
so many times.
These guys are.
Our lives.
Yeah, we all
I can
know.
know their names.
Yeah, no, they personally helped. I mean, probably everyone in this room has been helped significantly by just individuals that, just the personnel that is supported by this. And again, this isn't like faculty. This is people that they've hired through the tech fee to support the tech that we have in the building. So we know that if anything breaks, if anything has issues, we have the processes in place to take care of those things, and that's been huge.
And so I know it's not my discussion to join, but I think that just for good context, last year architecture plan design was up for review. So we reviewed the 40, right? Yeah, $4 per credit hour, and it passed just for for continuity because of how it was used and stuff like that. So I was just going to say this is unique. I think this year is a unique situation where we have not only reviewed the new fee, but we've just reviewed the old fee and thought that money was appropriate there. So just kind of some context.
Any concerns about this?
I'm only concerned that I won't be able to see the fruits of it being a student here anymore.
Might not have to pay as much though.
I mean, at least you got to see the new building.
This is true. I am very fortunate in that sense.
I feel
Yes.
so bad for the ones that graduated before we
I
got
know.
them graduated.
I mean, I'm not concerned about I think that what we had was definitely appropriate for what we had before too, but I think the part that I see about it is looking ahead. And I think that, in a sense, like, it's like going to alumni after school, like they're making an investment back into the college. Like the same thing, if maybe I don't see all of that money I put in right now, like, because I know we have lots of new stuff at the moment because of our design and the funds that came out of that to pay for technology. I know that I'll see that investment at least carry forward and keeping the stature of the school we have. And then looking at we didn't talk about this tonight either, but looking at the comparison for other schools that are like, even Ivy League schools, we are a very cheap school for a design school. And we're like known nationally for
in every program. So
Yeah.
and I think that, like, to me, that makes me understand like why an extra fee or the additional $15 per credit hour would be reasonable.
And also they've established a committee to review what kind of technology is needed on a yearly basis. So it's constantly under review what all we would need to be using these allocated funds for. So that's something that's always going to be reviewed every year by a committee of faculty, staff, students.
So it's moved and seconded.
Yep.
Take a vote. Okay.
Real quickly, so there's 8 people here. What's the total list?
10, so we're missing 2.
Perfect.
So we're 4.
That's pretty good.
Okay, is everyone good to vote? All right, Haley?
Yes.
Oh, yes or no, sorry, yes. Yes. Brandon?
Yes.
Angel?
Yes.
Christina?
Yes.
Dacia?
Hasio.
Hasia. Okay, that I heard that say it, so I was like, okay, maybe I missed her.
Yes.
Okay. Mitchell
Yes.
and need to copy and paste over. I have 2 more. Allison
Yes.
and Nate.
Yes.
Okay, so
Good
passes.
Okay, sorry. I didn't do it. Okay.
So passes 8 to 0.
All right. Thank you, folks. Appreciate your time. Quick attendance. Thanks so much. All right, TMSC. So real quickly, while we don't have an APD meeting next week, the committee's going to meet next week. So everybody get excited for that. We're going to review the 2 votes, and we're going to talk about the review process. So
What time?
6.
Good. I didn't know exactly.
You don't need it, I can imagine.
It looks so amazing.
Except for Becky said. So I actually, I'm serious about it. I'm probably going to say
That time I took you with
yeah.
Maybe we need to tell him this. He doesn't have to have it for 3 people.
Okay, so did Julia email us?
I'm checking pictures. We do
Yeah.
that. Have you sent it on there? I'll just.
We just heard engineer.
Sir. I know we just said, well, I'd like to leave a little early. That was, hey, we're done, right?
Yeah.
Now it's time to it's just a little different, but it's brand new, so we're still trying to figure it out.
Very good too.
I'm exhausted. I want to be
Yeah, 3 now.
You too. See ya.
He said I got here at 7. Oh, was it Canadian? Oh, yeah, I got up at 6:30 and pain studies. How to take a quiz. And studied for the test. Actually, I was home from this to this and this to this, but I have a test Thursday, so I've been studying, like sitting with this and being a crazy person. Oh, and I was like, this is a priority now. It's a go.
The stark contrast of those different
Yeah.
colleges.
Okay, was that
Start contrast of the deans.
Yeah. First of all, I was also, okay, so what they told me afterwards is that they had like multiple hour-and-a-half meetings with Dean Snowball before they came in this room. So like engineering, they came and asked all their questions to their dean during this week. But they were just like ready to go. Because
And the thing sure if that's allowed, like
yeah, I think
not
that's
allowed
concerning.
because like we're not there to observe that process.
Exactly.
That's what I was gonna say. 'Cause
I was trying to figure it out because they were like proposing to us. And so her and I both, I didn't realize you did too. Guys sit down and we were like,
we need to clarify that we don't have any say in what happens here. Like it's their budget. yeah, because it's supposed to be like they're coming in fresh.
Yeah,
and then you just
fresh,
propose
yeah.
things to them.
Yeah, right.
Like
Like,
I guess we've already stated. Like
because they were all just like,
yeah,
which I think
they would
have
have say. Yeah.
I think they would have supported
That's a
it
good
because,
email conversation.
I think they get it, but.
And the room was set up in a little
gosh.
bit of a weird.
It
way.
because Jack had us all sit along the
I see. I was watching it on the live stream, so I was.
Okay,
I
that's
was-
what Andrew said. I'm like, no, there's no way.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Well, like I didn't think you would do that.
Well, they didn't know.
What else do you think I got better than Thursday night?
I know, but I
Please.
don't know what he has better. Did you hear that I was raising the new speaker? And I'm putting my new speaker in this minute.
Wait, what?
Okay, so you watched the whole thing, right?
No, I didn't watch. I stopped the
Okay.
video.
Okay, cool. Okay. Well, you really should have kept watching because the entire time I was like, hey, come back. I was basically telling him exactly what to say.
No way.
Yeah, and so Nick was next to me and he was like,
Yes.
all right, Mr. Speaker.
Oh,
Speaker.
God.
Think it's over, you want $20 million for 30 hours? Yes.
Yeah. What sucks is
That was good though.
my mom's sister.
Yeah.
And she's having to look. I feel bad. She's having
All right.
to like normally she goes to the office. So that's not coming in the office. So it's like really bad. And she's like, well, it's gonna be awkward. Like, because I sit right. I mean, I want my mentor.
Yeah.
But it'll like still be really pleasant. Yeah.
We on camera?
TFSC
I
was.
don't think I have things.
Who's listening?
Have you? I hope nobody.
I just have.
Hey,
Big Brother. Big Brother's listening.
Here I go.
Bill 68 and 69. How'd those go?
I swear, it's
Some question, did you do it?
I'm nervous.
Yeah,
8-0. But because I noticed a couple times you do it, like, in the Bill season.
No, I don't know.
You did this. Okay, I just look. Okay, I just wanted you to know. Yeah, don't bother doing it in the comments anymore. So I'll just ask. I think that's probably easier for me. So, yeah.
Hey, it's just so you know.
At what? 8:30?
10 o'clock. You call me at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, but I've also called you after 10 o'clock too.
Yeah, you lucky.
Yeah, I have the worst circulation. Like I put my hands, they're like really my hands and my toes and my lips.
My roommate was so
like literally so fast. It's not best. I need like
Hey Connor, quick question for you. How did TAC vote on to refer that?
You know, once I found out about myself,
6-0, something like that?
Whoa.
Awesome.
What are you chatting with?
we video all the TFSC meetings so that people can watch them. Amen.
I blame everything.
Feel free to grab a seat.
Well,
We did roll this at 6 o'clock. Yeah, grab a seat up here.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that either.
Well, you know, doesn't make
Watching us, I don't know. I just want to like probably. Excuse me.
I would talk to Jonathan. He can cross that out for it to go on there. Maybe something just as far as.
Jonathan, is someone watching this?
No, that is, so we record the TFSC. Oh, shoot. Yes, sir.
I might be done.
Yeah, I mean, I have it all pulled up. Okay, let's do a lecture.